All right, all right, all right. We are a rolling.
In 1/4 mile, turn left on Indiana 37. Turn left at the traffic light, then exit right.
Hey, lunch was all right. Lunch was all right. We had a good conversation. Had a little trouble finding exactly where we wanted to eat. Of course, you saw that probably. Uh, Places that are still closed down thanks to the uh, lockdowns and all of that. But we finally found a spot, got some food ordered, and we ate. We had a long conversation. They're great people, and they think a lot about the same things that I think about, and they feel the same way about them that I do. So it's good to know there's people out there that have the same opinion that I do on a lot of things, and they are wonderful people, and I really appreciate the fact that they came out and wanted to have lunch with me and everything. They actually invited me to lunch to begin with. I really appreciate that. Very, very good, down to earth people. Yep. Yeah. No. The restaurants. We tried what, two or three restaurants. All three were all of them were closed. The last one we tried was what we got, but and it ended up being a pub, so it was kind of more like bar food. But they had a decent menu, um, and so the first couple of restaurants closed and with signs up hiring, for all positions, or under new ownership and stuff like that. But you're looking at these places and you're going, these places never opened back up after the lockdowns happened, which means the people that originally owned them went out of business. So somebody else has now bought them and tried to bring them back, or is trying to bring them back, but still having no luck.
Take the exit on the right to I-465 East.
Oh, goody! I'm in time for rush hour. I guess I probably should have checked and seen if there was a way I could have cut through town to get over to 74. Instead of dealing with this. Well, anytime you go someplace right now and you see that the business is closed still, the business never opened back up after the lockdowns in the first place, and you see they got hiring signs up, and you see they got signs up say that they're under new ownership trying to hire people, and they're still not open, that's because they're not going to come back. There's no way.
Continue on 465.
Nobody wants to go back to work in that kind of position for the little amount of money they're going to make and the way they're going to be treated and the short amount of hours they're going to be allowed to work. For one, and mainly because of the way this economy is right now. The prices of everything are so high, you can't afford to do it on a minimum wage job. So there's that. That's why the regular minimum wage job type stuff is not opening back up, because nobody wants that. Nobody wants to work for minimum wage. Nobody wants to work themselves to death simply so that they can still watch themselves and their families starve. Nobody wants that. So we had a good conversation. They're really good people. They used to run in the trucking industry themselves, so they know how things go out here. And his wife is from Washington State. Up near, kind of up near where I grew up in the first place. So, she's kind of a breath of fresh air coming out here in this side of the country, and running into somebody else who came up in the same area that I came up in.
Who's going to jail?
Oh, there were a lot of restaurants that closed down because of, depending on where you were in the country. Mostly it depended on it depended a lot on the city that you were in or the county that you were in. Whether it was a liberal city and county or whether it was not. Most of the places where the county or city were extremely liberal, you got a lot of businesses, not just restaurants, but a lot of businesses that ended up shut down and then struggled to reopen. Because you're looking at a year or more where they had no income whatsoever, which even just a month of no income for most businesses is enough to kill that business. There's places all over the country right now where businesses are still not opened back up, and that's because they got knocked out of business completely simply because they had to close. Hey, Dan Kiwi, how are you doing? How's the fight over there? You guys are still going, I hear. Anything interesting happened today? Dummy. You're centrally located. Well, yeah, and being in Phoenix, that's another thing. It's a major trucking town. You know, Phoenix has a lot of different big trucking companies there and a lot of different manufacturing and warehousing there. And because the trucking industry is there as big as it is, that is why you didn't see a lot of stuff closed down in your town. That was the only thing that made sure that you didn't see anything closed down. But you got other places around the country where stuff closed down because they didn't really have much of an industry to begin with, which meant there wasn't that many trucks coming and going. I mean, sure, a lot of semi-trucks come through Indianapolis regularly, every day, but we're not actually stopping here. We're not getting loads from here. We're not hauling anything out of here, and we're not really bringing much of anything in. The stuff that comes in is just what is needed to supply the people that live here. That's it. There's nothing extra. So when you get into places like that, that's where you start seeing that there is a lot of stores or businesses or restaurants that are still closed down. And somebody has to answer for that. Because you shut down a restaurant. Not only are you shutting the owner down and possibly putting the owner into bankruptcy, but you are making sure that at least 10 to 20 people or more are now on unemployment because you just shut their work down. And then you're making sure that everybody in the neighborhood can no longer get food from that restaurant. Oh, here's a nice old Peterbilt coming up in my left here. It's a nice old one. D Majesty carrier. D Majesty. Hey, D Majesty, you got your ears on. Looked like he was on the phone, so probably not. I always wanted to ask him what year his Peterbilt was. Oh, okay. So there was a documentary there against key freedom movement people, etc. All right. If you can grab a link, Dan Kiwi, if you can grab a link to that documentary, I'm going to give you a wrench so that you can put the link in here, okay? Oh, my. I do not like driving like this. No, I do not. Stop, go, stop, go. You see how slow my truck accelerates compared to most others, because I've got a little mouse motor. So by the time I finally start catching up, they're already hitting their brakes again. Usually. All right. 'Angry. What is it called? Off towards Cincinnati. What are these ones here? Angry Farmer. Oh, Angry Farmer. 3 miles to go till we're on 74. What are you doing? What are you doing? And there's a state trooper up there at the top of that was looking at you and isn't going to come out after you. That is so stupid. There wasn't room for you there. Hey, Brett Boyle. And we the people, how are you? So, we just stopped for a little lunch break, and the guy that goes by the name Moving On here on YouTube came out with his wife, and they took me out to lunch. Really nice couple. We stopped at like 3 places to go to lunch, and all 3 of them were closed and apparently have not been open since the lockdowns. In other words, the places probably are just plain out of business. Um, you know, the lockdowns created a lot of problems, and a lot of businesses, a lot of places went out of business completely because of it. And we just found 3 places in a row like that here in Indianapolis. And we finally ended up going into a pub to get some food. They had a really good menu. I mean, they even had they had ribeyes and prime ribs and all kinds of stuff on their menu. So they're a high-end pub, I guess. But the fact is that the first 3 places we tried were out of business because of the lockdowns. They had signs up saying, under new ownership, trying to hire, hiring people, hiring now, call this number for hiring for a job. It's just sad that there's businesses like that got shot out, literally got the carpet pulled out from under them because of lockdowns. Hey, Rosie Rowe, how are you? So yeah, they were good people that I had lunch with today. We had a great conversation throughout the whole time.
Continue on 74.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did, Dan. And it's just odd that you can go to an area that was an extremely conservative area, right? Like, as opposed to an extremely liberal area. The places that were extremely conservative still have all their little businesses and little restaurants and everything are all still open, never shut down, not once throughout the whole thing. But then you get into areas here where the area was a little liberal or a lot liberal, and there's so many businesses, restaurants, and other things that got shut down during the lockdowns and never came back. Ended up knocked out of business. It is funny to me. Well, it's not funny. It's serious. But isn't it funny that the businesses that survived are in the conservative areas and the businesses that did not are in the liberal areas? Yes, the economy purposely being tanked. Car troubles in New York. All right. Well, what's wrong with it? Yeah, you and me both, Flutterby. I own my house. I own my truck. I own my cars. I don't have any payments to make on anything other than regular bills, you know. All right. You need a water pump. Well, make sure you get a water pump. When you go to get it at the auto parts place or wherever, pick yourself up a 10 millimeter, 12 millimeter, and 13 millimeter wrench and a flat head screwdriver. Uh, maybe you Phillips screwdriver. Job yourself with meter, 12 millimeter, and and you need a big that'll hold like 6. You drain the inch wrench. You'll need a half-inch wrench for the drain plug on your. Pull the drain plug on your radiator, let it drain down into the pan. In after it's done, pull your water pump out. I said a 10, a 12 meter wrench, or most common sizes you're going to find, especially since it's a Honda. I'm assuming you're in the Honda that you own, right? The reason you might driver is so that you can water pump out of place. It's out. It's real easy to do. It's just take the bolts out of the water pump. First, take the hoses off, which is why you either need a flat blade screwdriver or a Phillips, because they're going to be locked on by. Most of the time, they're locked on by a hose clamp that you use a flat blade screwdriver or a Phillips screwdriver to loosen or tighten. Sometimes they'll be the clamp-on kind where you use like vice grips or something. But either way, you take the bolts on the water pump, pull the water. I'm wondering if that's a new one, a full serpentine and the power steering. But have like one belt with a pulley on it. It's really easy to put back on, but you pull it out, put the new one in, and put everything back together the same way it came apart. Refill it, and you're gone. Just like that. I mean, realistically, if somebody wanted to sit down and just do it, if they had the water pump, the new water pump already there, you could take the old water pump out, put the new one in, and have it refilled and running within an hour. That's all the time it really takes. Now see, if it's hooked up to the same serpentine belt as the rest of the stuff on the car, then you would actually need like a breaker bar with a half-inch a half-inch end breaker bar, so that you could get the idler tension pulley to back off enough. Then you get, when you go to put it all back together, you need to do the same in order to remember exactly which way. It has to go on exactly the same way it came off. Most vehicles have a diagram of exactly how it's supposed to be. Somewhere on the hood, on the underneath of the hood, or in the engine compartment there somewhere, you'll have a diagram that tells you how that belt goes on and off. Right now, I am in. I'm coming around the. Well, I'm on I-74 headed in towards Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm going to cross through Cincinnati, Ohio, heading into Hebron, Kentucky. I deliver in Hebron, Kentucky tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. So I'm going to get as close as I can, find a place to park, and call it a quits for the day. Good having lunch with you guys. You and your wife are wonderful people, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much for inviting me out. Just a lot of bridges in this country. I couldn't tell you which one to me. The only thing that's scary to me out here on the road is all these other people in their cars playing with their cell phones and not paying attention to what they're doing. Those are the only things that scare me out here.